Hello, everyone. Sean McElroy here with our Autoline exclusives. Joining me today is Rob Barossa, the Senior Director of Sales, Marketing, and Business Development at Electrify America. Rob, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sean.
So I just want to kind of kick this off. Even when we talk about Electrify America still, we'll still get some people in our comments that aren't quite sure about the company. Just want to kind of clear that up a little bit. The company was born out of Volkswagen's diesel cheating scandal, where part of their settlement was to invest $2 billion into the company. And you guys are using that to build up an EV infrastructure, access to it, and education and all that sort of stuff. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so we are an investment by Volkswagen to exactly that, build out a national infrastructure program to service all zero-emission vehicles. So we've really focused on building an ultra-fast electric vehicle charging network across the United States. So now we have roughly just over 500 stations built with over 2,200 charging chargers at each station.
Yeah, and I think that gives you now a cross-country route that someone could take. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we actually have a couple of routes now, one sort of through the middle of the country, one through the southern section, and we have more and more routes being built out every day.
Yeah, one of the reasons I wanted to get you on is because it seems like every week I'm getting a new notification in my email that you guys have got something new coming out, doing something new. What are some of the stuff that you guys have coming our way?
So we have a lot of really exciting things, stuff that you've been seeing in the news, right, with the launch of our 500th station. We have new stations opening up with solar canopies being integrated with energy storage into the stations. We just announced yesterday the introduction of plug-in charge, so no more apps or anything like that. You just plug in your car, and everything automatically just happens, and you can charge your car and be billed in the background. And then we have a lot of great new technology coming out in the future to help make charging simpler and more seamless for the driver.
Now, was this part of the plan? I know you guys have like phases or something like that where you wanted to start rolling out different things. Was all this news that's coming out, was this kind of how the plan was supposed to evolve? Or is, you guys just kind of kicking into gear and getting things going?
Yeah, I mean, it was always part of the larger plan, right? So when we first started, it was really trying to figure out, okay, basically our mission was to help drive zero emission vehicle adoption, and so we had to figure out what that market needed. And so talking to different automakers, consumers, drivers, all sorts of different stakeholders, we really zeroed in. Okay, the market really needs this ultra fast charging network. So that's where we started. And so our focus has been, okay, let's get that built out. Let's get the real estate. Let's get all the processes to build the scale that's needed to really build this out quickly in the speed that we have. That was sort of our first task. The second one then was to ensure the quality of the stations. So we've worked very hard, tirelessly hard with different manufacturers, suppliers, building out the right network system, building out the right maintenance capability throughout the country to be able to deliver a highly reliable experience for the consumer, right? So that when they pull up to get a charge, that they're able to do so and that it's seamless and quick. So that's really been a big part of our focus. And then along that comes, we've been working on just different technologies, right? That as the evolution happens in electric vehicle space, as that happens, we're sort of keeping up and working with the automakers and different stakeholders to do that. So plug-in charge is a perfect example. Where now different automakers like Ford, Lucid, Porsche wanted to integrate the charging experience into something that's seamless and hasn't been seen before in fueling, right, in general, so that you can just plug and go.
So how does that work for the consumer then, the plug and go sort of thing? Do you have to fill out any sort of information? Does the charger communicate with the vehicle? How does that all work?
Yeah, so what the consumer will do, what the driver will do, depending on the ecosystem that they're part of. So, for example, if you buy a Porsche Taycan, you can sign up for their charging service within Porsche, and so there you'll register for an account and put in all your credentials, credit card information, or buy specific plans, whatever it may be. And then once you're registered and you go to a compatible charger like the Electrify America stations, you just go ahead and plug, and then the vehicle does talk to the charger. So it transfers over a unique ID to the charger that then goes to our backend system, authenticates with the Porsche backend system to make sure it's a valid driver, and we know, and Porsche acknowledges that and then lets that happen, and then we let the charge proceed, and then everything's reconciled in the back end. So to the driver, it's seamless. They didn't have to pull out anything. All they had to do was plug in and go.
And then another change that you guys made recently is that you're now charging by the kilowatt hour as opposed to per minute. Or I should actually maybe clarify that a little bit. In about half the states in the US, you're able to charge by the kilowatt hour. Some other regulations don't allow other entities to resell electricity, so you have to still charge by the minute. But I believe that change was just made recently where you're charging by the kilowatt hour now.
Absolutely. So back in September, we initiated that change, and when we first started, right, we were really focused on building out the infrastructure, building out the systems, and the scale needed to be able to perform what we've done. And so we decided to keep it simple, just charge by the minute. And then as we went through our evolution, then we started to investigate. Okay, how can we make this happen? Charging by the kilowatt hour is sort of we think is the fairest way to charge the consumer, so they know exactly how much energy they're getting and also paying for that exact amount of energy. So like you said, it depends on the state, whether they allow that to happen within that state. A lot of states are kind of working the system, and more are coming on board to allow private companies to sell by the kilowatt hour. And so where we've been able to make that happen, we've initiated that change and have gotten great feedback from drivers and consumers. And so it's been, we think it's been very positive. I think it's a very positive signal for the industry, and also to policymakers as they look at in their own territories about how they can advance electric vehicle adoption. Right, this sort of thing is a real game changer.
Yeah, I would just add that, charging by the minute, it could depend greatly on the charging speed. During the wintertime or when it's really hot out, speeds can vary. So you might not be getting a true apples to apples kind of comparison where you're getting exactly what you're putting in. Charging by the kilowatt hour seems more of like a comparison to filling up at the pump.
Exactly. Yeah, and batteries charge at different rates depending on the vehicle, and not only that, depending on, like you said, temperature, but also the state of charge. So typically, when batteries are near zero state of charge or low state of charge, they can charge up pretty fast to about 80%, and then they slow down. So when you charge by time, you don't really know exactly what power level you're at, and so yeah, charging by kilowatt hour certainly takes that problem out of the way, and consumers get exactly what they paid for.
And as our viewers know, we're not just looking at passenger vehicles when we're talking about EVs. We've seen so many electric trucks, semis for commercial and fleet operators. Do you guys have anything going on in that sort of space?
Yeah, so as we've built out with the scale and technology and other things, we've been approached by many different players in the industry, not just from the light vehicle duty side, but also from the medium and heavy duty side, to see, what can we do for them and help them electrify their fleets. So a lot of that isn't in our investment plan today, or it's a limited amount. So what we've done is to kind of handle those special situations. We launched a specific venture called Electrify Commercial, where a team of people is just focused purely on those sort of applications, and taking all our know-how and knowledge that we've built out, not only from a technology standpoint, but from a deployment standpoint, and bringing that to the medium duty and heavy duty vehicle side. Not only that, we've, part of this is, when you operate a network, there's a lot of different pieces that have to come together. You have to bring in, you have the vehicle, you have the driver, you have the charger, you have the network system, and all these different things are talking to each other. And so there's a lot of timing issues and other things like that have to be resolved and figured out. So we have a lot of that capability in our test lab that we've developed for the light duty vehicle side. So we're bringing that over to the medium and heavy duty side to help that segment of the market advance.
Is there anything beyond time? I mean, you mentioned time when we're talking about commercial vehicles. Obviously, these are typically much larger vehicles with bigger battery packs. Is time like the big difficulty there, or are you learning other things with these vehicles?
It really depends on the fleet and the application, right? So you might be dealing with drayage trucks that are working in ports, or you have applications where the trucking is sort of short haul trucking, where you're taking cargo that goes from a port location, say like the port of Los Angeles, and takes it into the Inland Empire, just outside Los Angeles, right, to big distribution centers and warehouses, and then they return, right? So it's sort of these short haul trucks. And then you have more of your sort of cross country kind of trucks that are driving the hundreds of miles at a time. So it really depends on the application that we're working on, and understanding how those vehicles are being used, and then developing the right kind of infrastructure need. I think what you see today, right, that while there's a lot of excitement around the medium and heavy duty, especially the heavy duty, we're still a little bit of ways, right? We're starting to see the first trucks starting to come to market. And a lot of that is as the technology develops, as batteries improve, as costs come down, right? You'll see more and more of these trucks entering these different applications.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, but despite all these EVs that we have coming in passenger and commercial spaces, they still make up a small portion of the market. And a lot of the times we'll see surveys on our side where people still show concern over availability of public charging stations or speed, how long it's going to take them to charge up. But a lot of what Electrify America does too is education. How are you working with people to try and educate them, at least on those fronts as well?
Yeah, so we've launched several campaigns as part of our investment. We have a current campaign called Normal Now, where it's really trying to showcase and advertise what we thought was kind of unique, or first, like when we first saw the internet, or we first saw computers back in the 80s, right? We thought they were so like, oh my gosh, that's too crazy, that's out of our league. And look, it's a normal thing now. And I think electric vehicles over the last 20 to 25 years has really gone through that cycle, right? Where you had sort of the EV1 back in the late 90s. It was kind of this futuristic looking car, and then they kind of went away, and then Tesla came along, and Nissan Leaf, and you had some of these other brands come along, and they've gone over the last decade, have improved tremendously, to where now you drive around and you see an electric car. It's not an unusual thing. It's pretty normal, right? And so we're reaching that point where the technology has advanced, the price points have gotten incredibly competitive with ICE vehicles, that there's not really that much of a roadblock now to get into electric vehicles. And that was one of the things when we looked at our investment. What does the market need, right? And we really honed in on this ultra fast charging network. When I got started back on the on-road side for light duty vehicles in terms of charging infrastructure 12 years ago, 13 years ago, we were looking at 50 kilowatt chargers, and we were really excited, like, oh, that's going to be so fast. And it was a big thing. But just in the last 10 years, that now 50 kilowatts is sort of it's a convenience charge or opportunity charge, right? The market demands much faster. The market's demanding 150 kilowatts or 350 kilowatts, which means on a 150 kilowatt charger, you're getting about 7.5 miles a minute. And on a 350 kilowatt charger, you're getting about 3 miles a minute, or 23 miles a minute, sorry. So, that's a game changer, right? Now we're starting to match the fueling experience people are accustomed to at gas stations, but it's in an electric car. And so once you get that kind of infrastructure, consumers are no longer worried about, where am I going to charge my car? How long is it going to take me to charge? Because they know this infrastructure exists.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that your CEO said recently about increasing adoption and awareness was policy from different entities. What does he mean by policymakers and policy will have to play a role in this?
So policy plays a huge role. One is, you're trying to change a market, right? A market that's very entrenched in sort of the what's been done over the last 120 years or so, right, around combustion engines. And so now we're trying to get them to shift to electric transportation. So policy from a standpoint of, how do you incentivize the market to get into an electric vehicle? A lot of that comes from just straight incentives like we see in the federal tax credit of $7,500, or different incentives from states like in California where they offer a few $1,000s when you get into an electric. So that's one area of policy can help drive the market to get into an electric vehicle. The other area of policy can happen not only from federal, but very from a state standpoint, even a local standpoint, is how do you take out a lot of roadblocks, to get infrastructure in the ground, right? How do you increase permitting times to speed those things up? We did a lot of this when solar was first rolling out, right? Solar was very cumbersome to get installed on a residential roof or a commercial roof for that matter. And so a lot of things had to be worked out from the utility interconnection standpoint, from a permitting standpoint. So we're going through a lot of the same sort of roadblocks that I think we experienced in the solar world. And companies like ourselves are working with the different policymakers to figure out how do you make this easy and seamless, right? How do you really push the industry forward? How do you get things done faster? So we've done a lot of work, especially like in California, in the permitting side to help expedite with the local jurisdictions. We've worked with utilities across the country to sort of teach them about electric vehicle infrastructure, work with them on how do we plan out the infrastructure and where it goes. How do we speed up sort of the interconnection timelines? So there's a lot of different things that states can do from a policy standpoint to help speed things up.
So I'm curious, where are you guys going in the future? You got this $2 billion. I'm assuming the plan is not to burn through that cash and sail off into the sunset. You want to be a sustainable business. How do you get to that point, and where do you see yourselves going in the future?
So we're going to continue to build out like we've been doing, right? Starting to continue to build out. Right now, we're at 500 stations. By the end of next year, we'll be about 800 stations across the country, and then we'll continue to build out, more density in the metro markets. So we have more access for people that probably don't have home charging or any other reliable means of long-term dedicated parking. So having this fueling infrastructure, in these dense urban markets is extremely important, right? For fair access, I would say, for anybody who wants to get into an electric vehicle. So we'll continue to look at applications like that to see how we can bring the right kind of infrastructure into these metro markets, continue to expand different destination routes and other corridors across the country to get people to where they want to go, right? Whether they're vacationing or any other sort of thing, right? And continue to build that confidence in consumers. So I think that's where our main focus will be going into the future, and then we'll continue to build out the technology aspect of it, right? So plug and charge is one piece of it. Continue to expand that. Look for different ways to make charging, continue to make charging more seamless and easier to do. And then the third aspect is continually to focus on quality. We want to make sure that when a person goes to get a charge, they get that charge on their first try. And there are no failures, right? People are accustomed to that when they fuel their current ICE, and it should be the same experience, if not better, when you charge an electric vehicle. It's critical to make sure that people have that confidence in the infrastructure, and that's what we'll continue to do going forward.
Yeah, and I think one of the most very interesting things I saw come from you guys recently is that you're working on policy to show that a charging station can reduce CO2 emissions compared to a vehicle filling up at a gas station, and possibly even have charging stations or charging companies like Electrify America earn carbon credits like any car company can for producing an EV, and then those carbon credits could be sold off to anybody that needs them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've taken a lead position to help develop that voluntary credit market. And be able to create a marketplace where we can exchange those credits. We do participate today. California has been at the forefront of this kind of initiative with their low carbon fuel standard, where basically for every kilowatt hour we dispense, there's a payment that's made. And then if our electric source is tied back directly to a solar or other renewable, right, there's an additional payment that comes in. in for that kilowatt hour dispense. So Oregon has a similar type of market. New York is looking at developing a similar type of market. So there's a lot of these different market applications that are coming online. And that are all great to help incentivize more infrastructure, right? Improving the economics to those that want to put infrastructure in the ground.
Yeah, no, it's very cool stuff. I definitely find it very interesting. But I just want to thank you for coming on here and giving us a little bit of your time and giving us a little bit better understanding of Electrify America, what it does, kind of where it's headed in the future as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity, Sean. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Rob Barossa from Electrify America, thank you very much.
Thank you.